Perfect. I think the first thing I wanted to start with is the fact that I am so honored and humbled to be able to share the stage with individuals as beautiful as Jessica Dane and Joe Lair and Tom Stencil. You see, you guys have only heard them for about an hour, 15 minutes, hour and a half, and you've fallen in love with their stories, their personalities, and who they are. But me being a young pup, I get to actually be around this every day, day in and day out. And the amount of knowledge, the amount of truth, the amount of reflecting that I get to do, and the amount of growth that comes along being around these three individuals is unbelievable. I've learned to be a better father, a better husband, and just a better person overall and in general. Now, last year, when I was here at Cold Smoke, I was the leadoff batter, if you remember me talking about my story. And I remember telling you how nervous I was to be the leadoff batter. You know, I was a young pup. I needed to make sure that, everything got it off to a nice start. I wasn't going to, be the weak link in the chain. And I didn't think the pressure would get any worse than that. This year, I am the anchor leg. The pressure is times 10. Why? Because the speeches that we just heard were so amazing. I don't want to be that guy that leave the sour taste in your mouth with you guys going home like, I don't know if I'm going to come back next year. All right? That's not my role. The last time that I've ever felt like this was way back in high school when I had to run the anchor leg of the 4x4. I don't know if you guys know what the 4x4 is, but that's when you have 4 members on a team. Each member must sprint the full circle of the track with the baton and then hand it off to the next person. And after all 4 of the individuals on the team have done that, whoever crosses the finish line first wins. Now, I was usually the 3rd person all the time. My job was either to widen the lead or, if we were losing, catch that person before the 4th person, before I handed the baton off. This day, the 4x4 was the last event, which meant whoever won this event was going to win the dual track meet. Okay, so we had to win this. It just so happened that we were going up against Mr. Dwayne Solomon. If you know who he is, he got 6th in the 2012 Olympics in the 800. Next summer in 2016, he'll be trying to achieve a gold medal in the 800. So at this time, he was a senior. He had won state the year before. He was recruited by USC in Arizona. And our anchor leg pulls a hamstring. So he can't run. And so everyone looks at me. I was like, okay, I'll do it. And so I remember lining up on the line as our teams are sitting there, and I'm looking over at Dwayne, and he has like just the look. He's fresh off of a college recruit trip, And when he ran, it was just so beautiful. It was like a deer. It was that's exactly the way it looks. And so I'm sitting here looking at him, and I'm like, I'm going to have to run an absolutely flawless race to be able to win this. So the gun goes off, bang. And I watch all of my members run their life, their hearts out as hard as they can to get me a lead because they know who I'm going against, right? And as I see the 3rd person coming, and this is the stance, you're here, you're waiting for the baton, you come here, you take off and you run. And I'm noticing that we have like a 15-yard lead right now. And so in my head, I'm like, okay, so I'm the anchor leg. They've done their job. And just like I explained to you earlier, I can't be the reason why we lose. Okay? So now pride has come into effect. My pride is not going to let me lose a 15-yard lead. Okay? It's not going to happen. So as I get the baton, I get right into the mode I'm supposed to be. Sprint the first 100 yards. And so I'm sprinting. I hit that corner, and as I come around the corner, I get to the straightaway, and this is the beautiful part, because I'm like 6'1", and so when you're tall, you can actually stride out the straightaway. So that was my plan. I'm going to stride out the straightaway because I'm tall, and we're going to be good. Well, what I forgot was I'm 6'1". Dwayne Solomon is 6'3". So his stride out is a little bit longer than my stride out. So as we're striding out, I hear the crowd getting louder. I'm like, oh, they're just cheering me on. But as soon as I hear that, I start hearing the and so I'm like, okay, he's obviously closed that lead down because I wasn't hearing that earlier. And then after that thought, I hear a and I'm like, okay, the crowd's getting louder and he must be getting close. And then I hear a and he's here now. Right? And so now pride is no longer, it's gone now. He's got me, okay? So there's no more pride. Now we are holding on for dear life. Now there's two things you can do in the in a 400 race. At this point, it's called when the bear jumps on your back, okay? And that's where you lose all thought of being informed. You go full commando, and we're in full survival mode right now, okay? Or I could get it together, be as tight as my spandex were on me at that time, and win the race. And when I mean to tell you, we ran stride for stride for 150 meters. We ran stride for stride for 150 meters. And at the end of the race, I had won by this much. You see, it wasn't about me winning the race, though. It was about me having to straighten my life up for that 150 meters to be able to accomplish my goal. You see, when I first met Joe Lair, I was full commando. And when I mean full commando, and this is about 3.5 years ago, I mean full commando. On the scale of commando-ness, I would have to say, I would have to liken my life to, the guy that just streaks out in those big events like Wimbledon and the Super Bowl and that the security guards have to tackle? That's probably where my commando-ness was at when I first met Joe Lair. And the stories that I actually talk about between meeting Joe Lair and now are about me going from full commando to wearing those tight track spandex and getting my life together. Now, one of the things that I had to learn when going from commando to spandex was to swallow my pride. You see, at the beginning of this year, I had a lot of growth. I had a new business that I opened. I got married, and I had my second baby girl. And with that means my motivational speaking career kind of went to the burner. And like many fathers and parents, you know that with all that added growth comes responsibility, upon responsibility, upon responsibility, upon no time for yourself, upon I don't know what I'm doing, upon let's get this stuff together. Okay? And about 3 to 4 months ago, me and my wife sat down and we were on the let's get this stuff together point. We understood what it was going to take to be good parents. We were working on our communication to start making progress to what I wanted to be and what we wanted to do together, and that's travel and me speak. And so I had to go back to the things that I was doing before all the added growth came. And those are some of the things that I want to share with you today. You see, the first thing that I had to learn, like I said to you, was to swallow my pride. I can always remember when we used to have to watch film for basketball. We would walk into the locker room, my coach would be, make sure you take off your little cloak of pride and hang it on the invisible coat hanger. I was like, this isn't preschool. I'm not hanging nothing on no invisible anything. But yes, I will let my pride down. But what I didn't understand was why he was telling me to let down our pride. You see that RTP button that Joe Blair has? Mine's probably about the same. The ready to pounce button. And when you let your pride down, so goes that button. And what I didn't know is when you let your pride down, you're willing to learn. and you're able to accept either the mistakes that you've made, or you can accept that you just didn't and weren't prepared for that situation, and you want to learn how to further be prepared. You see, I was reminded of this lesson about 2 months ago. Came home from work. It was a very, very long and stressful day. I've been irritated from the families I've been working with. I had been working at the basketball academy for like 4 or 5 hours on top of the 8 hours I already worked. And so I'm getting home around 9:30. Done, spent, ready to go to bed. I walk in the door, and my beautiful wife, who is Latin American from Venezuela, greets me with a hi, how are you doing? And I say, Not quite like that, but something like it. All right? And as I come around the corner, I see that my wife has made a beautifully prepared dinner. So I go into the bathroom and wash my hands, and I come and sit down. And I could tell that my wife, Vanessa, had a long, long day, and she just wanted somebody to talk to. Obviously, you're at home cooped up with the baby who can't speak a lick of English or Spanish, for that matter, right? And so she wanted somebody to talk to. And as we're sitting there talking over the dinner table, she's asking me questions, and again, I'm just hitting her with the yes, no's, maybe so's, all right? And somewhere between the transition of me getting up from a dinner table and starting my chore of the dishes, we commenced to get into what you would call an argument, we call a heated discussion that's going to lead us to higher ground, okay? That's what we're going to name that. So we're now in this heated discussion that's going to lead us to higher ground. And if you don't know, when a Latina woman gets upset, I'm going to just let that imaginative picture just take you away on that one. And so we're sitting here arguing, and halfway through the passionate discussion that's going to lead us to higher ground, I start taking the dishes that I've already rinsed off and literally shoving them into the dishwasher. Like, I mean violently shoving them into the dishwasher. Like that was going to help get my point across even faster and even quicker. Okay? And halfway through me shoving the dishes in, Vanessa looks at me, and instead of being upset, now she's like appalled, or like dismayed, like a different look. And so I'm already turned up, I'm lit, and now she makes a funny face at me, so I'm like, what? And she goes in the calmest voice, who taught you how to load a dishwasher? Didn't they teach you to load it from back to front to save space? And instead of listening, I go, why are you always on my back? Why can't I just do what I want to do? Now, we're going to step out of that little situation right there. Now, the right thing to do is to come to the wife and go, I am so sorry. I will never speak to you in that tone again. I'm sorry I didn't say hi to you. I'm sorry I didn't acknowledge that beautiful dinner. It'll never happen again. Now, there's the second option of jumping on that high horse of pride and riding off into the sunset in a blaze of glory. You can imagine which one I chose. So my wife looks at me. She goes, okay. Picks up her tea and walks upstairs. So guys, I believe you've all been in this situation. At this point, if I'm not already sleeping on the couch, I'm one word away from sleeping on the couch. So I decided to finish my dishes, work on some emails till she went to sleep. Then I crawled into bed. 2 mornings later, literally 2 mornings later, I woke up early like I usually do. You know, I start my coffee, get my little Christian music or rap or whatever I'm feeling that day. You know, get my feng shui going nice and calm. And so my chore was dishes. Nobody's up. It's still dark outside. This is a perfect time to lower the pride. You know what I mean? No one's going to see. And so I'm like, maybe I should try doing the dishes the way my wife told me to. No one's going to know, so I'm good. All right? And so I walk over to the dishwasher. Now, here's a big point. You know, like when you're reading a book or reading the Bible, sometimes they have that asterisk, and you got to go down to the bottom. Okay, I'm giving you the asterisk right now, okay? There were more dishes in the sink this morning than there were 2 nights before, and I filled the dishwasher 2 nights before. Let me say it one more time. There were more dishes in the sink this morning than there were 2 nights before, And I filled the dishes this night, okay? So I'm back here, loading the dishwasher, and I pull out the top. And right, that's where like all the the cups and, like measuring cups and all those things, and maybe small bowls. And so I'm putting them, back to front. And it's actually kind of cool because you know how like the pegs are shaped, and bowls obviously can't just fit in there perfectly. So now in my head, I'm like playing Tetris, just fitting things in there, trying to save as much space as possible. And I look in there, I'm like, man, I still have a whole rack of room for the cups. Like, I did a pretty good job. Put those in there. And then I bring out the bottom rack, and I start putting the plates in there, and doing the same thing. And I noticed that sink's empty, and there's still a whole half a rack empty too. So I close them up, I'm like, man, we still got room for the lunch dishes. And then I thought about it. In that argument 2 nights ago, my wife, all she was really trying to tell me was something that was going to help me. And because my feelings were hurt, because I let my pride get run over all day, instead of listening to her, I fought back. And then I had one of those ding, aha moments that God so lovingly has been giving me all the time now. How many times have I let that same pride slow up my progress on my process of going from a dreamer to a dream chaser? And so that's why I say the first thing that I had to learn in order to get going again was I was going to have to swallow my pride. Day in and day out, I was going to have to swallow my pride. And not to bite my tongue, but to allow myself to learn every possible lesson I could possibly learn in a day. Now, last year to the day almost, you remember me telling you a story about Robbie Berwick. How many of you remember that story? Okay. And Robbie Berwick was a little 5-year-old, with buck teeth, with glasses, had a lisp. And you remember we asked him, Robbie, what do you want to be? And he looked up at us and he said, professional basketball player. Sounded like Daffy Duck. But we watched as year in and year out, he worked and he worked and he worked. Until 2 years ago, he got a full ride scholarship to one of the top universities in the nation, Florida State. You see, Robbie is now 2 years away from achieving his goal of becoming a professional basketball player. And after my speech last year, I sent him the YouTube and the link of the speech. And I said, Robbie, I had a speech about you. Let me know what you think, and let me know if I need to add anything. Sent it to him. And he's a young kid, so I'm thinking, I'm gonna get a response like a week, 2 weeks later. Boom, 2 hours later, I get a response. Yo, Mecklin, that was so cool. I'm so thankful that you made that video. But there's 2 things you forgot. So I text him back, well, what were the 2 things I forgot, Robbie? And he said, you forgot to tell them that I never listened to the naysayers. And I never let anybody outwork me. You see, last year we talked about dream chasing. We talked about the 5 steps that it took, about having the dream, then having a vision, then having a plan, then executing that plan. And not only executing it, but executing it with love and with courage and knowing that it was going to work. You see, when you put those 5 things together, you literally take the first step in going from a dreamer to a dream chaser. Those are the steps that you need. But see, what we didn't talk about was the process. We didn't talk about the road that you travel on going from a dreamer to a dream chaser. We didn't talk about the narrow alleyways and the ups and downs that you will have to experience when you're going from turning your dreams into a reality. You see, we're always under the assumption, probably because of social media, that it's as easy as following the yellow brick road, right? Just like the Wizard of Oz. Here's my dreams, there's yellow bricks, let's skip all the way down to the finish line. It doesn't happen that way. You see, the road is full of great lows that you will literally have to pry yourself out of bed just to be able to breathe And then you're going to have to move your legs like you're stuck in tar. Out. One step at a time. But then there's also those great highs of progress and success where you're so high that you feel like you can jump off of the highest cloud and survive. Or there's those occasional life twists that you'll have to choke down like a warm shot of vodka. Like the loss of a job. A terminal illness. Loss of a friend or family member. Rest in peace, Lucy Crown. And then there's those beautiful moments, like holding your wife's hand on the altar when you're getting married. Or holding your baby girl when she's born for the first time. But when you're on your journey, the key to this process is to always make progress. I'm going to say it again. The key to this process is to make progress. You see, we always hear those stories of, you fall down 7 times, we get up 8. Or when you get bucked off the horse, you just jump right on up, dust yourself off, and you go again. Isn't that what they tell you? But they never tell you what happens if you fall off and you break your leg. What happens when you fall face down and you can't see up? You see, those are minor setbacks or minor pauses. What is it that makes it to where you can follow those 5 steps to start moving again? And for me, in my life, it literally came down to the definition of the word process. If you look up the definition of the word process, it goes, a series of actions or steps taken in order to achieve an end. I'm going to say it again. A series of actions or steps taken in order to achieve a particular end. I don't know what you get out of that definition, but for me, it was 3 words. Consistency plus discipline plus patience equals the process. You see, I learned this lesson for the first time when I worked at the autistic group home about 5 years ago. If you know anything about autism, it's ranked on a scale from 1 to 4, 1 being all Asperger's, which means you can talk, you can pretty much well function, but you have, some cognitive delays or OCD, something of that sort. And then there's 4, which means you're just short of a vegetable. And we had 2 kids in that home under that term, which means we had to bathe them, we had to feed them, we had to change their diapers. 13, 14, 15-year-old kids, this is what we had to do. In this particular case, he had seizures. They said he wasn't going to live past the age of 19. Rest in peace, because he did die this February at the age of 19. But he had seizures. And so when we would teach him a particular task, after the seizure, he would totally forget. We had to start over. And the most tedious task that we had was having to shower him, which was always early in the morning. So we had to wake him up and then get him showered and to the breakfast table. That took 161 steps. It literally took a half hour to 45 minutes to follow all of those steps to get him from bed to that breakfast table. And in order to do a step, you had to break each step into 3. It's called ABA, Applied Behavioral Analysis. So if I wanted to pick up this water bottle, if I wanted him to pick up the water bottle, I would have to say, "Sir, pick up the water bottle. Sir, pick up the water bottle like me." And then if he didn't do it, we have to physically take him and say, "Here's how you pick up the water bottle." So we have 161 steps, and you have to break each step into 3. Now you're at 483 steps. Then you can imagine after a long, shift or a long night of partying, you're not trying to get up and that's your first thing of doing. 30 to 45 minutes of following 483 steps. But what we learned at the staff meetings was when every single one of the staff members followed the 483 steps, that showering process went from 45 minutes to 15. Because he was learning how to do the steps himself due to being consistent with the ABA process, being disciplined with following through with all 483 steps, and having patience knowing that it's going to take 45 minutes. And you could always tell when people weren't doing that, because your showering process will go from 15 minutes to a hiccup halfway through, and now all hell broke loose in your bathroom. And that moment there, those defining moments working with that patient, is what helped me apply that concept to my life. That if I want anything, like working with this business, motivational speaking, I'm going to have to be consistent in what I do. I'm going to have to be disciplined, militant-like. And the hardest part, oh God knows this is the hardest part, I'm going to have to be patient. And that was the toughest part for me, being patient and knowing that everything was going to work out. Now, the last key that I had to learn after swallowing my pride